Alright, I've been talking about this video for a little while, so let's do it. Today we are going to talk about low-risk experimenting. So, start out this discussion. I have a couple of books, right? Representing kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. You have Brewing Classic Styles, excellent book. I've used many recipes out of this. Basically what this is, if you want to make a certain recipe to style, you look it up, you brew it, you nail it, okay? It's straight ahead. Doesn't mean that it's always easy to do every style, but it's just you know what you're going for, and you're going to end up with pretty much what you want, what you expect is a better way to say that. And the other end is experimenting. What do we call this? Experimental homebrewing. This is also a very good book, but what I have found in my experiments and also tasting other people's experiments, especially if you're being a little bit creative, a little bit adventurous, sometimes you end up with something that you just don't really like. A lot of guys are okay with dumping beer. I hear that talked about. I personally am not, okay? I brew 12 times a year, 15 maybe if I'm lucky. I don't want to end up with 5 gallons of something at this point in my life that I don't want to drink or that I really can't drink. So what I've done over the years is kind of a compromise, right? So I love experimenting. You guys have seen a lot of videos that I've done, but I want to minimize the risk. So that's what I do. And how do you do that? Well, you kind of sometimes take known things from your experience or from things you read, so you know that a little bit of ginger is going to give you this kind of a character, or a little bit of this kind of red malt is going to give you this character, but you're not going to end up with something that's ridiculous or something that you just can't drink. So, by way of example, today I have a couple of experiments on the table. I wanted to try to make a red beer, okay? Just was something I looked up, thought it'd be fun to try. Aiming for a certain color based on an SRM of about 17. So I used ProMash and typed in some numbers and came up with the grain bill. Another part of the experiment is using this malt called Cara Red, which of course you could use in a red beer. I didn't really know if it would add much color or flavor, but wanted to try it. I also, third part of this experiment is I wanted to make a sweeter beer, and Munich malt is a malt that I've used many times, and it gives a known sweet character that is really delicious. I knew I was making a lager. That kind of goes with Munich malt if you think of Oktoberfest. So I wanted to make a red beer, pretty sweet with the Munich, and try this Cara Red. I also was going to use Warrior hop for bittering. It's a hop that I like, but I was really going to play down the hop bill and really just do mostly try to end up with like a malt-focused beer. So, with that said, let's get on with the experiment. When we're done with the brew, we will come back and we'll see what we think of the results. Alright, I thought I would talk while I'm doing the mash here. I get some comments sometimes. People say, hey, it'd be great to do more brew day videos, that kind of thing, and I understand the interest, but I gotta be honest with you, as if you see what I'm doing right here, the video that I put up in 2007, I started brewing all grain in 2005, so that's 10 years ago now this summer, and the video that I did in 2007, I basically do it just about the same way. I've done the no sparge video. I did the high gravity. I showed you guys how I sometimes do like a high gravity thing. So anyway, I thought I'd do a few clips just so you can see that I'm basically doing it the same way. Back to the task at hand. So this grain bill, what I'm trying to do is trying to make a red beer. The experiment is, can I use numbers and grains and SRMs and try to get a reddish beer. I also want to see if I can make it kind of like a nice big, mostly sweet malty beer, but with a nice little unique hop character. So I have 8 pounds of Pils malt. I have 3 pounds of Munich. That's where I'm getting the sweetness from. I'm familiar with Munich malt. You could certainly even dial that up more if you really wanted Munich-y flavor. Right now I think I'm gonna be coming in a little high here on the mash temp. I'm letting it, I do have a digital thermometer, but this one is more accurate. Now another part of the experiment is this Cara Red. I saw a beer somebody made with Cara Red that had a really nice red color. I like the sound of the malt. Why not? So I have 1 pound of that, so you're up to 12 pounds total there. And I have 4 ounces of Carafa 3 dehusked. And I went with the dehusked because that's supposed to be removing any kind of bitterness that you might get from having the husk on there, the highly kilned husk. So 4 ounces of that. So I have 12.25 pounds. Alright, I'm aiming for 152. It looks like I'm at 154, so what I thought I'd be a little high, so I just got some ice. What did I say, 154, let's do 3. What else can we say? So the low risk part of this experiment is coming from, I'm using a different malt, I'm using the Cara Red, which is not going to make a terrible batch of beer. I'm also trying to hit a color, which is also not a huge deal if you miss it or a little bit off. But it's a good test of your understanding of the grains and of maybe the software that you use. I'm making a lager instead of making, you know, like a red ale, Irish red ale. I'm making a red lager, but that's also a pretty low risk. Looks like I'm at about 152, 153. I'm just gonna finish dialing this in and getting it right to 152 and then cover this up and let it sit for an hour. Okay, after 1 hour, the temperature is still 152. So, let's get this first runnings going here. Check it out. I thought it'd be fun to try to see initially if there was any color that we could look at. I don't know if it gets, it's kind of reddish, kind of brownish. I don't know if it gets lighter after it ferments. I'm thinking that might be the case. Let's see here. We're running out pretty clear. I usually only just do a 1 pitcher like this. And yes, you do pour this back in. I didn't show that in my original video, but that is what you do with the collected Vorloff. Another thing I like to do is take a look at the gravity here. You know what, it looks, when it gets thinned out in here, like when I just saw it, a thinner layer of it, it did look kind of red. But we got plenty of time to analyze the color once it's done. $17.5. That's not too bad. So anyway, I don't even know why I'm showing you this, but yeah, the same old type of thing. I don't know if you can see in the tube. It's kind of reddish. You know what also is going to happen is this is going to be darker than the second runnings, which will then overall lighten up the color and the entire amount. And then even after it's fermented, it might even lighten up a little bit more. So hopefully we're on track. Alright, so here's the second runnings, which, yeah, I don't know, reddish. Guess we'll see. Let's see, how are we doing? I got 3.6 gallons. First runnings, I added 3 more gallons in here. That's what I'm collecting now. It's not done running out yet, but we can go ahead and do a check here. Oh, wrong way. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, So it'll end up 6.5 or so. I can kind of jimmy with this hose a little bit and raise it up and down and get a little bit more out of here. But it's gonna be 6.7 gallons or so, and we'll see what we end up with. Alright, another small part of this experiment is I'm using Warrior hops for the bittering, and then just throwing in, I'm just using 1 ounce, half ounce bittering, half ounce I'll just throw in at the end. Warrior is a hop that I have liked. This isn't a super hoppy beer, so I thought let's just do it. But the moment that you've all been waiting for is when you add the hops and you go boom! The boil is done. I added the last half ounce of hops, and now we're just cooling it down. There we are. There she is. It's kind of red. It's the focus, 1060-ish. So 12 pounds of grain, and I got 5 gallons, and it's about 60 degrees, so it'll cool down the rest of the way. I'm aerating here with my stone setup here, and yeah, so far so good. The room is gonna like be 45, 50, so it'll cool down the rest of the way and get fermenting. Alright, so I just kegged it, and I bottled 4 bottles before I kegged it, which I have a video on that if you want to see what I mean. I did 1 clear bottle. You can see the one on the end is clear, so that's the color. And then here's the hydrometer sample. It's down to about 1012, which you can't really see, but anyway, give it a, well, it's not going to be on tap yet, but once it's on tap, we'll give it a taste test. Oh, that was fast, huh? Beer's already done. You see what I did there. I pulled the old Chip Walton, doing the intro and the outro on the same day. Alright, so I've had time to think about this since I've been drinking this beer for a little while. First of all, let's talk about the color. I don't know, you know, I'm going to come around here. Pardon my timing here so I don't have the forward-facing thing here. So, it's not looking very red in my frame right there. However, in this size of a glass, which is, I just can't get it to, there, it's kind of lightening up a little bit. You can kind of see my point. In this size of a glass, which is only about 8 ounces, I would say, yes, it's somewhat red. However, in a larger glass, it's a little more towards the brown. So that means I'm guessing the SRM's got a little bit higher, so it's leaving the reddish category, getting into the brown category. That's I would say, as far as that experiment goes, maybe not a total success, not a total failure. And again, does it matter? Does the color affect the beer negatively? No, it's fine that way. What about the Munich malt? Yeah, baby, that I've given this to several people and excuse me, gotten pretty good compliments. Everyone says it's very smooth, definitely malt forward, it's sweet, and they like it. So as far as that goes, the Munich, I think I did 3 pounds. I'll have to look, or the recipe will be posted. To sweeten up a beer, I think that's a good amount. You can certainly use more Munich, and you could certainly use less. But again, it was a calculated small risk, so I just kind of took the amount I did and went with it, and I think it worked. The Cara Red, I suppose, did add a reddish hue, although I wouldn't know unless I made the same beer without it. It certainly didn't ruin this beer. But yes, I used the Cara Red. Can I taste the Cara Red? Not necessarily. But again, I think it was 1 pound, which would have been less than 10% of the grist. The other thing I was wondering about is the Warrior hops. Now, I love hops. I make a lot of hoppy beers. This beer is not very hoppy. It is also not very bitter. So if I wanted either of those things to be increased, I would have to use more hops. I kind of knew that going into it. I will say it's even slightly less bitter than I thought. I think I used ½ ounce of a alpha acid of like 17% or so, so I thought it might throw a little bit of bitterness into it, but I guess the gravity was high enough that it didn't really do that. The lager yeast is nice. Lager yeast always come out nice and smooth. This beer is nice. It's very easy drinking, very smooth. Even my father-in-law, who's a cheap beer drinker, said, "Oh, it's pretty good. It's not too bitter and doesn't have a weird aftertaste." So those are compliments coming from a non-craft beer drinker. A couple of final thoughts. I'm not breaking any new ground with this low-risk experimenting kind of thing. It's just something that I like to do because I don't want to end up with 5 gallons of ginger-flavored something or other that I just can't drink. So what other ways can you minimize a risk? Well, you can do smaller volume, which I've done. So I've made a smoked beer. I've racked 1 gallon into a jug and put in some jalapenos, which has turned out great, but then I only have 1 gallon in case it doesn't turn out great. So you can do something like that. Another thing is just use lesser amounts. Say you are wanting to use ginger or some other spices. Just use smaller amounts. You kind of have to have some experience doing this kind of stuff to see what will at least give you some effect, but just sort of don't maybe do the full amount to get a really super strong flavor, but just use some and then see what you think. Next time you can always dial it up. Another thing is splitting batches. That's a way. I mentioned the 1 gallon thing. You could split a batch into 2 and treat them a little bit differently that way. So these are just my thoughts after brewing for however long it's been. My batches are important to me because I don't have a lot of time to kind of just waste on full-on experimenting. Like Denny and Drew love to do that stuff, and God bless them, that's fine. They can do that. Everyone can do that, but I like to kind of split the difference between just making something to style all the time, which I do like to do, and sort of going out there and making a crazy experiment. Anyway, those are some thoughts. Feel free to comment, chime in with the ways that you experiment or things that you find that work for you, and see you later.